17th of December. Just about a week now till the big jolly elf appears and lightens up your day and hopefully brings you something lovely for Christmas. Okay, my turn to open door number 17. Here we go. Opening that door. On the advent calendar of Lard for 2023, it says, Nick, hobby tools. What 3 hobby tools or hobby techniques, or dare we say hacks, can you not live without? Well, the answer to that's easy. I don't think there's any of them that I couldn't live without. But there have 1 or 2 things that I've picked up, which I do try to make sure that I don't run out of, for instance, when it comes to materials, or I was stuck in the back of my mind to think that was a jolly interesting technique and I might use that again. So the 3 that I'm going to choose to share with you today to keep this advent calendar brief and fun are, firstly, in true Yuletide colours, green stuff. Green is the colour of Christmas. Red and green go together beautifully. Now, green stuff, fantastically useful. Never ever allow yourself to run out of green stuff. You can use it to glue things together. You can use it to model additional body parts on your figures, should you be so inclined. You can also very easily use it to model other aspects of their uniform and equipment, which is really helpful. And I think also with green stuff, and this is the bit that I think makes a difference these days, is that you can buy green stuff in its liquid form. So normally we might expect to buy some green stuff that would be the blue and the light lime coloured green stuff, whatever it's called, that we would rub together to create a slightly darker green plasticine that can then be used to, while it's supple and soft, to turn into a moulding of a new rucksack or something on a figure. But the idea of having liquid green stuff is really quite helpful when using plastics and now increasingly with 3D printed materials. Because one of the easy criticisms about plastics and 3D printed materials is that they are quite weak, they are fragile, and they can break. One of the things that I've learned that liquid green stuff is really good for is strengthening some of those joints or areas on plastic figures and 3D printed figures that you think are more prone to damage. And by the use of liquid green stuff, it just gives them a bit of a protective, hardening coat that can make them more robust. Now, you have to be careful about the way you use it, because if you splash it on all over, as our Henry would say, then actually you can just become a bit of a thick gloop. But if you apply it sensibly and carefully and with the lovingness that goes with the brush, then you can use it to fill gaps, classically using it to fill gaps around areas where the heads of a figure might join the body, or where equipment might leave a bit of a gap between the equipment and the body, or where arms don't fit properly, especially with conversions. Never ever attempt to do any converting without making sure you've got a good supply of green stuff. I recently made some commandos, Second World War commandos, in their cockleshell hero canoes, and the canoes themselves were 3D prints, but the commandos that went on the back of them were plastic conversions, and I needed to obviously put some hands on the commandos that looked like they were holding the paddles for the kayaks, for the canoes. So of course that simply involved cutting off their normal hands and putting a couple of blobs of green stuff in that then became, with the careful use of a bit of a scalpel, their hands. And then again some wet green stuff once that had all dried, just to strengthen up some of those body parts. So that's a really nice one to use. Green stuff is really useful. The other hack, I don't think these are really hacks really. I'm not really into all this super duper modelling stuff. I'm a pretty basic kind of guy. I like to use tools that I've got lying around. The second thing though that I use, which is ubiquitous, is no more nails. Or if you think about the one that Richard uses, what is it called? Sticks like shit. So the great thing about those things is that they exist in a liquid form when they come out the tube, but of course they harden when they're in contact with the air over time. Now, what this means that they're really good for, No More Nails in particular, I think is really good for making sea and water. So you can of course buy water resin, and that will make a nice see-through clear base for you to use in your water features. But I found that No More Nails is really nice for creating like a base that you might put a large vessel on, a ship, or even those canoes I mentioned, because it does two things. Firstly, it glues the vessel to the base. Secondly, it glues the vessel in the base in a way that the glue goes right up around the hull of the vessel. And then all you need to do is just gently using almost like a brush, just flick that white stuff, that No More Nails stuff, while it's still wet, into little troughs and peaks, and it will soon look like a seascape. And then once it's dry, of course, you can just paint that with a dark grey base or a black spray, and then build up a sea colour on top of it. And what you've got is something that's really resilient, really robust, and looks great. Looks great. I've used it over the years very successfully. And actually, I don't bother now with any of these liquid bases. I would just use that No More Nails to use that with that. The third one is a bit more unique, a bit more niche, a bit more specific, I suppose, and great for this time of year, however. In fact, might be a little bit late for Christmas, because in November time, you probably had some fireworks, and you might have had some indoor sparklers or even some outdoor sparklers. Now, these are really good and interesting things, because once you've burnt your indoor or outdoor sparkler, what you're left with is a metal stick on which there's a burnt out residue of whatever the sparkler was made of. Now, these can be brilliant. Indoor little sparklers especially brilliant, because they can become fantastic smoke trails that you can attach to model aircraft in 1/300 or 1/600 scale. Because all you need to do is firstly coat that residue in a PVA, because it can be quite fragile and can break off. But coat it in a PVA, or maybe even some liquid green stuff would be a great thing to just paint over the top of it. You've got then a small piece of metal. You can snip off the metal, bend it round in a little loop, and all you're doing is loop that little hoop over the nose of the aircraft. And what you get is a lovely long smoke trail, potentially, that will then trail along behind that aircraft. And it looks really good fun, looks really nice on the table. If you use the really small indoor sparklers, you can even get them so you can just fit them over the engine, for instance, of a 4-engine bomber. And again, coat them with trim them, bend them round, coat them with that liquid green stuff, and then paint them to look like that smoke trail. That's a great little Blue Peter giveaway for a little tip that you might find fun. So there we go. Green stuff, never be without it. No More Nails or Sticks Like Shit, because they're really, really helpful for making terrain and sea terrain, and indoor sparklers that you can use as smoke trails. That's all. See you next time.